Now, here's two questions that are being asked very commonly. It's what do we know from cases of people with IBD who have gotten the COVID virus? And what are the risks of COVID-19 for particular IBD medications? And I'm going to answer both of these questions by talking about the SECURE database. And if all goes well, technically, everyone should be able to see this website. And I will just ask my colleagues to text me if there's any issues of not being able to see the website. But I'm going to presume everyone can see it now. And Erica just typed, looks good. Okay, good. So this is the SECURE website. And just to preface kind of reviewing the data on this database, we actually had an entire webinar dedicated to the SECURE IBD registry. This is a registry of now over 1,000 cases of individuals who have inflammatory bowel disease who have tested positive for COVID, and their physicians have reported it into this registry. And you can see that they reported it from countries all over the world. Essentially, in North America and South America, Australia, Europe, Asia, all of these countries are reporting cases. This database, I've been fortunate to actually be a part of, and we actually are just got our first paper accepted for publication in a journal called Gastroenterology on the weekend. So we can start to share the data, and people can actually scrutinize the data as well when they read the study. One of the roles that my team has had was that we've actually developed this interactive web-based map that you can all go to at any point in time, and you can actually see the data in real time. We update this every week. So this is updated for May 12th, earlier this week, a couple of days ago. And this was all done by by Fox Underwood. She is a geographer that works in my research lab. And you can see here all the cases. And you can actually even click on countries, and you can see that Canada, there's 20 cases reported in Canada of people with IBD, and one of those 20 cases have died. The one thing you have to remember about cases that are death, we suspect that this is going to have a selection bias of reporting towards more sick people, and that's why we think that if you had a sick case of IBD and they passed away or something bad happened to them, that is going to be a much more memorable case, and that physician is much more likely to report this than people who have had mild disease. Similarly, if you've had cases of IBD and you didn't get tested, but you had COVID, you wouldn't make it into this registry. So the first question is, who's kind of at that highest risk? And what we see here is you can see the number of people being diagnosed stratified by age groups. And you can see here that if you're under the age of 30, not a single child has died across the world from COVID. And the other outcomes that we look at here are hospitalizations and getting into the ICU. And again, kids have done tremendously well, and including young adults between the ages of 20 or 30. And really kind of these red bad outcomes are only happening as you get older. But even between 30 and 60, and remember, this is all over the world, not just North America, where outcomes are probably a bit better than in countries that are poorer. You can see that most adults have done well as well. The group that is at highest risk is our elderly population, and each decade that you're older, the higher the risk is of dying or ending up in hospital or ending up in an ICU. And that's why when we shifted our recommendations, we've shifted them to being age-specific recommendations. So, and Eric will talk a little bit later on about the website and how we've changed our recommendations to accommodate the fact that the younger you are, the less likely you're going to be impacted. The other question that was asked was all around treatments, and so who are people that are at risk relative to their drugs that they're on. And again, I can't go through every single drug, but the key things I just want to acknowledge is that even though 1,000 cases is a lot, it's still not enough to really tease out a lot of good information. You need hundreds and hundreds of people on a drug to really see if that drug has a risk. So you can just turn around here, JAK inhibitor, that's tofacitinib, which is a very specialized drug for ulcerative colitis with very few cases. So we're not really able to report on that one. Whereas over here, you can see this is anti-TNF therapy. and I apologize, this is written kind of for an academic audience, but anti-TNF therapy is Remicade, Humira, or the biosimilars of Remicade. And without 6-MP azathioprine methotrexate means that you're just on Remicade, Humira, or one of the Remicade biosimilars on its own. We can see that there's over 300 people who have been COVID positive on a drug like Remicade or Humira, and very few have had any bad outcomes. And when we did analyses comparing those who were on an anti-TNF agent against those who didn't have an anti-TNF agent, we saw no signals for increased risk. And that's led us to say that from a recommendations perspective, we actually feel that if you're on a drug like Remicade or Humira, your risk is likely no different than if you're not on it. And that's in part some of the reasons that we've kind of lessened a bit of the rules on the anti-TNF therapies, and recognizing that we still have limited data. So we always want to be cautious in any of these recommendations, but this is definitely reassuring. And the biggest difference was when we started our task force 9-10 weeks ago, we had none of this data to guide us. So this is now reassuring, and this data climbs. You can actually see the number of cases reported. The first one was on March 13th, and you can see how many Crohn's and ulcerative colitis cases have been reported ever since. And you can see that those numbers are going higher and higher. So as we get more cases, we'll get more data, and we'll be able to update you as well. The other thing I wanted to say was that the one thing that we did see in this database was that if you were on high doses of prednisone and you had very active disease, that puts you at increased risk for bad outcomes. And really that's consistent with all of our recommendations going back 10 weeks ago. Essentially, if you're well, in remission, whatever's keeping you in that state, you want to stay on that drug and not stop it, because the highest risk scenario is if you were to flare and need prednisone. That's when things become more difficult.